welcome to episode 5 of GamersGalaxie. Today we have a special guest, Matt, from Last Resort Game on AIIMX. We got Rubik, of course, as well. Rubik, how are you doing this morning?
Good, mate. Very, very early morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. So hopefully I sound awake today.
There you go. How about yourself, Matt? How are things going for you?
I'm really good. It's 5 for me, so I have the easy time, I guess.
Perfect. Even better. It's 8 a.m. for me, and bright and early on a Friday morning, and we're ready to go.
Let's go.
Yeah, and again, thank you, Matt, for taking the time, coming by the podcast, telling us a little bit about the game, how you chose. I guess we'll get started and dive into some of the questions. What was your inspiration for the game Last Resort?
Yeah, thanks really for having me and for doing what you guys doing. I really love this kind of format. For the game, really, it's a reflection. It's like a thought that grew and grew over the years. Started with CryptoKitties and seeing what these guys did, and then Axie Infinity in 2021. So for me, it was really about, hey, this Web3 thing seems to have interesting new mechanics show up. And for me, who have spent 10 years pretty much in freemium, I was doing freemium games maybe the last 8 years, let's say, or 9 years. And now we have the recipes all settled for this. We know how to monetize games. We have plenty of different items in our tool set, and we apply them according to which game we're making. And Web3 was like this whole brand new thing, and now we had exciting new mechanics to think about. So I really wanted to say, okay, what is new with Web3? And to me was community economics. Like, how can you have open economies in games, and how can that make the experience of the player really fun? So I thought, hey, if you're going to make an open economy game, which game should you make? And I looked at the whole spectrum of different games you could make, and I thought a survival game was really perfect because you can rely on the story a lot to make every Web3 aspect feel natural. So, for example, you do NFT sales, or NFT collections, and you have a limited supply. But why is the supply limited? Well, in our case, the military, who has managed to secure the city, has some surplus gears that it keeps, but once it sold or what it's given, that's it. You don't have any more of that. So that really explained the, for example, in this particular case, the limited supply. Then we have the decentralization, which in our case is like going from martial law, which is, okay, you had this very big military event following a Black Swan event. And you start with the martial law to control everything, but then you want to come back to democracy as fast as possible. And that's the decentralization we have, where we give to the player a lot more freedom of action and new tools so that they can interact between each other without going through us. Same with land ownership, and land ownership is basically, hey, now you have your private property, and before that you were in a shared military tent. So the story really helps, and then the mechanics are about crafting and also about lending, and we really wanted to have that on the blockchain, which allows for direct contact between players. So it's not really an inspiration as to, hey, I've seen this and I want to do it a bit differently. It's more, what is Web3 bringing? What is interesting there? What do I want to explore? And which game should I make so that I explore it to the best?
Yeah, I really like that approach too. Really coming to a new environment of Web3 and seeing the tools that it brings. I like that perspective of, hey, what tools do we have at our disposal, and really be able to build a game around that tech is a good idea.
Yeah. I think so too, and I really like what we've done so far. Sorry.
Yeah, we do a bit of talking over each other for being in 3 different regions. So sorry about that. I was like, what influences are you using on the game now? Like, are you getting inspiration from or influence from other games that are out at the moment that are guiding you or giving you direction?
Yeah, absolutely. As any game maker, you have to play a lot of games. You have to see the mechanics. You have to understand the different personas playing the games and who you're addressing, who's your audience. So it's really important to look at everything that's been made, how also the mechanics have evolved over time, because I always say there's a sort of like bell curve of products. Like some mechanics become more and more common, and then they kind of fade, and people don't like seeing them as much. So yeah, always looking at the market. We are cross-platform games, so there's both references on the mobile side, but also on the PC side and console. One that I find interesting, and we pick things from games that are quite broad, as you'll see, but one, for example, is Escape from Tarkov, which is decently recent, and I like this one for the risk-reward aspect of it. Like when you're in the action phase, you're really risking everything you have or everything you brought with you in the hope that you can come back with more. And this is one aspect that we have this risk-reward. Get out, take some risks, hopefully calculated, so that you can gain when you come back to town with more stuff. Another one we find interesting is EVE Online, for the massive community it has, for the longevity of the title, but also for the side that is value destruction. We don't have that now, but we're looking at what they're doing, and we're really curious as what they're going to do with Web3, because they have this ingrained in their game, and that's quite unique. And then on mobile, we have maybe two games that are interesting. One is Last Day on Earth, which was really successful about 8 years ago, that has this loop of crafting, which we find really, really key for us. And then we have Into the Dead 2, which is a game made by a studio in New Zealand. And first, it's quite a good game. And then secondly, it relies heavily on the story. So one of the main retention mechanic is you're hooked in the story, and you really feel like you're helping people, and you want to continue. And I find that really cool. Plus, the gameplay is a rail shooter, which is a very accessible type of action phase. And we want all our action phases to be really accessible, so that you can play it on plenty of different platforms, and so that anyone can actually enjoy the game.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're talking a little bit about the different phases of the game and what you're looking for in playability. Take us through a little bit of the core game loop of Last Resort.
Yeah, so when you arrive in Last Resort, it's because you received the call, radio call from the military, so that you can come back to this safe place and hopefully start a life that is a little bit more normal after the invasion of monsters, basically. And this city is the safe place where you're going to develop your character, develop your gear, develop your relationship with other players. So it's really what you would typically call the meta game of the game, but it's in a 3D scene, and you can see everyone else here. This is the MMO aspect of our game. And from there, you can choose the different adventures you want to go on. So one of them, and this is the one we have in the pre-alpha we have already available now, and this one is a loop of crafting. So you get out of town, you go to dangerous areas as prepared as you can be. You manage to collect items, and you strategize around which items you want to collect. You bring them back to town, eventually store them, and then eventually craft new items. Would it be weapons? Would it be armor or other elements that help you survive? And then you continue doing this so that your character can progress and can get stronger and stronger. And hopefully what you do is you participate in time-limited events. And this is something we take from Web 2. Time-limited events are really commonplace, and they're a good way to have something fresh content. And in our case, it's really the best way to incentivize a very positive loop within our player community, because you have these new areas that open. It's fun, it's engaging, it's something new to try. And we're going to have a leaderboard where players compete, for example, for clearing it first. And this, if you want to have a chance to be on the top of the leaderboards, you have to be prepped before. So you have to have engaged with that loop of increasing your gear little by little, so played regularly. And then you have to play with friends. All our gameplays are collaborative. The city is persistent. It belongs to everyone. And then every gameplay is collaborative up to 4 people and crossplay. And so you go on those time-limited events, you go in a new zone, and you fight with your friends to be at the top of the leaderboard and potentially earn hard currency in this case. So this is really the loop. Regularly, you improve your characters. And then from time to time, you go on these crazy missions with your friends, you organize, and you compete.
Oh, cool. And yeah, that sounds interesting. Is it so it's a persistent world that changes when you're offline?
Well, yeah, the city is. Yeah, the city is, and you have you have a map, and you have land ownership for NFT players. But we also have the game as a freemium version. So players don't have to own NFTs, and then if they want to become NFT owners, they have a soft ramp, which we'll talk about maybe a little bit later, that helps them get towards NFT ownerships in a very transparent way.
Yeah, okay. And is there plans potentially for the future for potential player-built cities and player-built content?
Yeah. So this is, and it's mentioned in the white paper, but it's basically season after season. We want to have a game as a service. The first version will launch about a year from now. We'll have a certain part of the features we want, and then little by little we will create more. And one of those things is when you have ownership of your land, then you'll be able to construct on it, and then you'll be able to make decisions as to what you craft with the space you have, but also just simply personalize your space. And this is also something we want to provide to guild members and guilds. So guilds could have their sort of HQ there, and they could use the landing mechanic where they own some interesting gear that players can use, and they can lend it to their community in the rules that they make up. Right, so we don't want to be making all the rules. We want to give special tools, basic tools that then guilds and other communities can organize around.
Interesting. That was kind of like ties into my long-term. Another question I wanted to ask you about the long-term vision. You've covered a lot of it. Is there anything else that we haven't covered about what your long-term vision is for the game?
Yes, there is. So basically, we want this game as a service, right? We want the game to have a life and continue and regularly bring new things. That's new content. That's the decentralization at play season after season. We also want to add new gameplays. So this gameplay, the first one is the crafting one, but then we have attacking, which will be in a rail shooter kind of gameplay, and then defending, which is a tower defense. So we add gameplay so that players can choose how they spend their time in the game. And then really our vision for long term is pushing the decentralization as far as we can go while it still makes sense in the game. So one example is hopefully, let's say, sometime after launch, as fast as we can manage, we would like to get to a point where season after season we have a set of choice that we delay to the players. So imagine going into the game, you have the city, and now the city has governance through its players, meaning you have a mayor who's elected, you have a council, and together with voting happening on the blockchain, they can make choices for the city. So the storyline can develop this way, where at the beginning of the season, maybe you don't know everything that will happen during that season. And then when new events happen, the community can discuss. And then ultimately, the choice goes to the people who were elected to manage the city. And again, tying down into the story, I feel like all these possibilities we have with blockchain is really interesting and can supplement what you could do with Web2.
Yeah, that's a really cool design. I like that idea.
Yeah, what I think about decentralization, is I'm not a big fan of like the decentralize everything kind of model, the DAO where they have the person with the most token gets voted in and they start deciding how to balance the economy and that. What happened in crypto unicorns, they had the community decide the price of the unicorn when the company has a dedicated economist paid that's an expert deciding that, and they put the prices up and it just absolutely tanked there was no one breeding anymore because it was too expensive. So they just started selling all the content. So the decentralization I believe in and think would be awesome is exactly what you just described. People just making decisions on the game itself, like in the game, what they like, and having the story decided for that. Yeah, so I'm really excited by that. By you answering the question that way, it was great.
Yeah, so this is a main point, right? The main point of the long-term vision is this, but it is true too that we want to have the players become part of the metagame, meaning that, for example, the crafting at the beginning will be done by us, by central command, but ultimately we want to have licenses to craft by the players for the players, basically. And in this case, we have thought of just what you described, which is an exploit. You have someone who comes into the economy and exploits it to his own benefits or to his own goals, which are not necessarily for the best of the community. And in this case, our way of handling it is, yes, we will have licenses to the players, but we will always have an NPC managed place that handles exactly the same things, except that it's typically more expensive. So if someone starts to do price fixing and you have, several actors coming together and saying, hey, now we're going to double the price, and we feel that this is going to, block the community, or we have community feedback saying, hey, the game is becoming really annoying because of this, then we always have a way to rebalance, let's say. Because yeah, decentralizing everything is an ideal. On paper it would be awesome, but in reality, we can see exploits, we can see ways where it could go sideways. So you have to keep a way to correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on your choice in partner. Why choose Immutable in the first place? What really brought you over to Immutable X?
Yeah, so the main thing, well, first we started the project when Ethereum was still proof of work. So I hope soon it's going to sound like something super old. Right now it's still pretty recent, but we really wanted proof of stake. So at first we were not necessarily that interested, and Ethereum came towards proof of stake, which made it way more interesting for us, but they were still only with Starknet. And that had one major limitation, which is the smart contract were not exactly smart contracts. They were sort of emulated on server side. So it was basically centralized. And in our case, we developed the game so that we would actually use smart contracts, because we believe that we have to experiment with these kind of tools, and they have to be on the blockchain, and we have to get all the benefits from that. So we were talking a lot with the Immutable team, going to different conferences, and those guys are awesome. Like, the team is really all towards gaming. They took the time to understand what we were doing, understand our needs. They took the time to play the version before we became partners now that we are. So we really enjoyed those guys, but they still had only the Starknet. So once they announced the partnership with Polygon, and now we could have smart contracts with Solidity, now it all became clear. It's like, okay, we have this partner. The underlying technology works great. It helps us get cheaper transactions, which means we can have more things as NFTs. We can have we can think of more mechanics, and then we have on top Immutable, who brings a lot of different tools that we planned on having anyway. So in the end, we have this like one central partner that is having its whole set of tools progress by the needs of a big community of game makers, and we benefit from it. So yeah,
exactly, yeah. And I see that as a huge plus for the entire community of game makers, of builders, is that you have basically an environment built for gamers by gamers, and the support you would receive is very directed towards that type of thing. So it makes it seem, to me at least, like it's a win-win right there.
Yeah, and I think it's only going to get better, because my thinking around all this Web3 mechanics is, at this time, no one has found this set of tools I was mentioning for Web2, at least not all of it. And we're going to discover mechanics that work. We'll see, oh, this game has this big community, and this mechanic is engaging, and it's really working. And once we have this, we will try to use similar types of mechanics to introduce in other games. And having a partner that is ready to develop everything necessary for that to happen on a blockchain, which is still a pretty technical aspect of game development, well, it's just great. It's going to give us some flexibility. It's going to give us basically the means we need to scale fast once blockchain games become more commonplace.
Absolutely.
Are you going to use their obviously ZK EVM, but ZK EVM is going to have APIs as well as custom contracts that you can put on to their blockchain as well. Have you made a decision on, is it going to be a mix of both, or is it just one way? And also, what other tools that you know about, like that consumers know about, are you building into your product, aka or potentially Passport, obviously?
Yeah, so Passport is the one I hinted to a bit earlier, and for sure, this is something we wanted from the beginning, because we want to have a freemium game, and we want everyone to be able to enter and start playing and have fun without owning NFTs. So Passport, for sure, is really a good one. It's really important, and it's great that they have it. The layer 2 aspects we will benefit from as well. Again, we can have more NFTs this way, etc. The smart contract is really important. Exactly where it goes for your first question, we have not made a choice on that yet. For now, we are focusing more on the mechanics and how we want to have them and the player experience. But the actual development of it, and as you know, ZKVM is not fully out there yet. We don't have a testnet yet. We're not there yet, basically, on the implementation side of things. What I feel strongly about is once we have figured out how we want to do it, I'm sure Immutable is going to be a great partner to actually execute. So I'm not concerned.
Yeah. Have you? How are you going with the team? Is there any extra resources you could use at the moment to help build the team, build the game? Sorry.
Yeah. So we're trying to have a seed round right now, which would help scale the team immensely. But the way we structured allows us to operate already, and we've really gone for a game first approach. The idea was to go the other ways, and some of what we've seen in 2020 or 2021, where you were building a big community on big promises, but then you had a very hard time delivering. So we did the opposite. We didn't do the community part. We just did the prototype, so that when we get to the community, which is happening now, as you can see, we already have a playable prototype. It's already cross-platform. It's already multiplayer, and it's quite fun to play. So it's really the best way for us to say to the community, "Hey guys, we mean business. We're going to deliver this. Look at what we've managed to deliver in a short amount of time and a small team. So let's start this community now. Let's hear about what people are expecting. Let's see what they understand, what they don't understand, what they feel is a good idea, what they feel it's not, and really benefit from this Web3 kind of grassroots aspect of things, where you have a much more direct contact with the game makers. And I cannot imagine how this would not be a great thing for the product in the end. So yeah, that's really what we're doing now. And the people at EMX have been absolutely awesome, both on the business sides, where again, like I mentioned, they got interested in what we were building, which is really the key. And we have not seen this level of interest and how much time they're spending on understanding what we're doing from everyone out there, from the competitors, let's say.
And I think that's huge right there. You hit the nail on the head. I've been in a lot of communities where they build up the community, they drop assets for a game that's not built yet, and it goes south pretty quickly. And it's really exciting to see a game like Last Resort come out of hiding, if you will, and show its face, and have something playable. And that's something that I got involved in early with Immutable X. One of the first games that I was involved in, Play Worlds, they gave you direct access to the team, and they gave you direct access to how the game design was going to be, and how some of the flow of the buttons that you were going to be using, because it was mobile and desktop as well, because you could play it in browser. It gave that sense of like ownership to the community, and then also it gave it the ability for a lot more input to be put in. And the cool thing about that is the areas where the developers could over deliver, they did. And that was something that is huge for this space. Under promise, over deliver, get something that is absolutely above and beyond what the end user is expecting, right? And that gives this ability to say, hey, we actually have a game to play, instead of working on having your community build the lore of the game for you. And a lot of projects are doing that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And that's also why our trailer is made fully in-game. So we've seen a lot of CGI trailers where if you pay a company enough money, they'll make something that is absolutely awesome looking. And this is really the best way to overpromise. So in our case, You can see what the status of the game is because we have the trailer. It's shot 100% in game, and then we did some playthroughs, and I hope to do more. I did one with Ryan, which was really cool. So yeah, what you see is what you get, and then you can see the white paper. You can see all that to understand what the vision is, or eventually listen to the podcast.
So we don't want to sound like complete shills of IMX. Is there anything that you would ask IMX to improve, to help, to do better? Because there's obviously, they can't be that perfect. You've said a lot of wonderful things about IMX, but is there anything you'd like them to improve?
Well, I'd say come back in 6 months, when we get more involved and we have to do the actual work of developing on. I'll have maybe a different thing to say.
That's a diplomatic answer. Okay, we'll ask you again in 6 months, mate. When you.
No, but the only thing, because I wondered if you asked this, but to me, it's not reached the full potential yet, AIIMX. So it's like, I feel like they're doing every step necessary to be in the right spot at the right time. I just want it to happen now. So it's not really something bad to say about them, because I wouldn't do things differently in their shoes. I think they're doing the right way, the right things. I am confident that they will continue to deliver in the future. But again, let's see in 6 months. But yeah, I hope we get just more players in the overall system. Let's say that's the day I dream of.
And that's also something that's going to come with time as well. You're bringing to the table one of the first playable Web3 games, right? And that's saying something. And you can't have a lot of players if you don't have a lot of playable games, and that is the bottom line. And it's great to see, Last Resort and so many other games that are starting to show their faces and really bring in gamers that are going to kind of keep the sustainability going, and keep the magic alive. And I think that is the next step in bringing this community together and bringing Web3 gaming to the forefront. And we won't have to call it Web3 gaming. We'll just call it gaming. And that's where the real litmus test comes in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's basically a consequence of the conclusion we had maybe sometime last year, where we said, hey, for this to work, we're going to have higher quality games, better thought games, better mechanics. And truth be told, that stuff takes time. Like today, successful mobile games can take years to develop, and the budgets are quite high. So I think this community has understood that this is what is necessary for the good products to launch. And like you mentioned, a lot of people are working on great products, and unfortunately, it takes a little bit of time. So I'm just impatient.
You and me both, bud.
The infrastructure layer is just not there yet. It's just like any infrastructure. When the internet first came out, the dial-up ding 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 sound, like it was so slow. It took a minute to get a picture come up on the screen. Like, what can you do on that? So blockchain's the same, and it's only just starting to hit prime time now. With these ZK and optimistic rollups starting to get into more mature, and with ecosystems built on them. And Immutable was going down the StarkNet route. They had a diagram saying they had StarkX and StarkNet, and then a question mark for another one. So they've been pushed back in their timeline because once Polygon ZK EVM partnership come out, they deprioritized StarkNet and went to Polygon and had to start from scratch. So they're a little bit behind, and we're in that kind of void period and have been in it for about 3-4 months, where all their focus is on ZK EVM and not on building tools that are building on top of the existing infrastructure. So that's all gone kind of like on hold, and they're building this new stuff. And as soon as it turns on in the next 4 or 5 months, I think we'll see, the opportunity for games building on IMX to really just go to the moon, because Passport, Relayer, Checkout, all these tools that they're building, on top of the best EVM equivalent and only EVM equivalent mainnet still today. So they've got an opportunity once that lands, if they can get it out the door and working within the next 3-4 months. I think Immutable will take off.
Yeah, I really agree. And to complement what you were saying, like before we chose EMX and the KVM, we were looking at other ecosystems. And at one point I was like, how many partners are we going to have? Because like, oh, for this like soft ramp and easy onboarding and non-custodial wallets, I have this partner. And then for this other thing I need to do, I have this partner. And at some point it felt like I was going to get like percentage points taken out of anything I do because I have so many different partners. And it's hard to maintain this way. And with Immutable proposing everything it does, now you have this one partner. It's much clearer. And yeah, if they keep up the good communication with the builders, I'm sure we're in for some cool stuff.
That's a really big point too, and it shows for the end user as well. So when you're trying to onboard new users, you're looking at the friction caused by having to have so many different partners. You know, you have to go to one place to pay, and then you have to go to another place to do something else, and it's like it just becomes so fragmented to where it doesn't become usable. And you, with the passport coming and everything, I see what you're talking about. You know, you had to be with this company to be partners for a wallet. Then for payment system, you had to be with this company or Stripe or whatever. And it just becomes
marketplace.
It just becomes chaos. And then you have just a larger umbrella of Immutable sitting there and allowing you to do what you do well, which is make a game. And that's the thing.
Cool.
It really is, yeah.
Really appreciate it. Sorry.
Is there any sorry, mate. Is there anything else you want to talk about with your game before we move on to our final question?
Not particularly, just sharing a bit our approach to community building. So I'm working with No Autopilot with Ryan to reach out to the community, and what we're doing is this month we're talking about the game, getting everyone excited, hopefully having people look at the white paper. We're really open to comments and understanding how it's received, what they like, what they don't like. We're really open for this, and then we're preparing something really cool for August, where we'll have a 2 weeks event. It will include a free mint. It will also include competition. It will include a lot of fun stuff and rewards as well. So stay tuned for this. I hope you can come and follow us on the socials so that when that hits up, you're the first to know.
Cool.
Awesome. Exciting to see you working with No Autopilot. He was one of the first people that I really enjoyed as a community member in Web3. And you know, I mentioned Play by Worlds. He was instrumental in that team over there. And anytime I had a good time in Web3 early on, it was with that guy. So you pick someone good to have on board with you and taking you through the community aspect, because he does it right. So good job on that one.
Yeah, it's also something I'm not super familiar with. You know, I'm a game maker. My career is in game production, basically. So, you know, as a producer, as a studio manager, product director. I'm not a marketing guy. So, like, having him, you know, guide me through is really helpful.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And to finish off, we always ask our guests, even though you're the first one, but we're going to do it. What game are you playing right now if it's not your own game?
That's a great question. So there's a few I check on Web3. The one I'm playing now, which is interesting to me because it became cross-platform, is Cross the Ages, because they've managed to go quite high in the rankings on mobile after having a good time on PC as well. I feel like their community management is really cool. They've worked on a long time, you know, before they got there, and they also rely heavily on the lore. So I'm interested in how they do things. It's a very different game. It's a TGC game, trading card game. Sorry, TG.
Awesome.
So that's the one I'm playing now on the different platforms. And then I'm how would you say? I'm an FPS player basically. I've always been since I was younger. So I play a lot of FPSs, a humongous amount of FPS, especially on mobile, because I spent 10 years on mobile, but also on PC. So yeah, I was a lot into battle royales as well for a long time. and I liked how it got used on PC and then brought to mobile and changed a little bit how it worked. So anything that is an FPS, I'm into, and then survival games I really like as well. It's just there's less great quality ones that I play. But
I know the feeling.
It's
on
not.
That one. So
I hope we can help with this.
Yeah, there you go. And then one of the other things is what was like the first game, when you were younger or something that like got you into gaming, that popped your cherry, if you will, that was like, okay, I'm gonna be a gamer the rest of my life.
Well, yes, this one is so frustrating to me because so I have these very vivid memories of going to a friend of mine who's close to my parents' place, and we were bringing the big computers and stuff. We're doing basically LANs in garages for the weekend, and I remember some of the games, and there was Counter-Strike at that time, of course, and we were playing a little bit of strategy games as well, but there was this one FPS game which I totally forgot the name of, and I only remember by one weapon that was in it, and I can't find what it is. So I don't know. I forgot. It's just too long ago, and I just don't remember.
It's likely something like Quake Arena or something like that.
No, this I played a lot. Quake I played a lot,
okay.
and Real Tournament as well.
Yeah.
And these were not the ones. It's it's a time where there was I think a bit more diversity and not like massive titles. I don't know. So anything Half-Life related, I played plenty of different modes, Team Fortress, these kind of things. But there was this one that I remember for a few years, and I think it just got forgotten. I don't think it became a license that is used nowadays.
I don't know if you can claim that as your popping your cherry because you'd never forget the name.
Yeah,
so that's a fair
point. Just joking, mate.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today. It was awesome chat. Appreciate your time.
No, my pleasure, and really thanks for having me and for creating the podcast. I think it's going to be a cool place to learn about.
Absolutely, and we'll have to have you back on in about 6 months' time, and then we can revisit some of those questions we had and see where we're at and catch up and stuff. That would be great to do.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be my pleasure too.
Awesome. Thank you again for coming on, and be sure to keep an eye out for Last Resort coming out on AIIMX in the near future. Awesome. So that was really cool of Matt from Last Resort coming by pod and giving us some insight, some deeper look into what they've been building in stealth there a little bit. What are your initial thoughts on what he had to say and the game?
Yeah, I liked it. It's good. There's a lot of players out there that are building to Web3's old school style of PFPs and DeFi crowd, and this guy seems to, and the team that he's built seem to get there's a good mix of gamer and that together, and it feels like he's trying to get the game first, focus on the game, partner with Immutable that's going to enable them not to have to worry about contracts, but still big, the ZK EVM, which enables their customization. And, will be interesting to see. It's a mobile game, so very accessible to people. It's funny, it just comes out of stealth like that, from nowhere. I think I was in the 9th person to follow them on Twitter just a couple of days ago. So interesting. I like that better than building in public. It's I don't agree. People think that I'm crazy for saying this, but I don't agree that you should build a computer, software development game in public. When it's ready to come out soon, like within 6 months, that's when you're probably at the absolute earliest. And he's done that, and so everything ticks all the boxes for me. I'll be playing the game for sure. It looks pretty cool. I had a little game of it on the PC. Yeah, so we'll see.
I agree. Like, big thing having it be mobile accessible. That's a big part of it, as well as having the cross-play of being able to play with people that are playing on their PC. He had, when we asked him what he sees like being done right, I like that he brought up Cross the Ages, because really they have shown that, like, hey, a TCG in the Web3 environment is something that's still doable. and it doesn't have to be held to something like Gods Unchained only or anything like that. And how he also talked about in-app purchases being something that need to be accessible even for that freemium style game, you know, and that's a big point for sure.
Yeah, it across the ages also highlights that bear and bull markets don't count for gaming. There's no relevance whatsoever. You hear people say build in the bear and bask in the bull and all this stuff. It's just game is game. You know, if you make a good game, you make it easy to access, and you make it, you know, quick and easy for a certain audience, like CTA's 10, 15-minute games, I believe, or 6-minute games. You know, it's like you can see the success. They're growing every week. There's 65,000 daily active users. 8,000 of those are on crypto. Mate, if you get it right and you build a good game, you know, market it right, and you just deliver, you're going to have success. And they are definitely, CTA is definitely, you know, what the industry should be looking at. They've released in the middle of the so-called bear that's going to, you know, no one should release in, that people say. So interesting to see how Last Resort can pick up from that and try and build on what they've learned from that to, you know, have success as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and having the foresight to be able to see that stuff is a huge thing, and I really like seeing that from a team going forward.
Yeah.
So I think one of the next topics we should jump into is one of my favorites. I think right now is Loopring and Taiko taking on the layer 2 and now layer 3, which it was pretty awesome. I
hope you did your research, because I'm leaning on you for this one, mate. Gonna be honest with you.
You know, and this is something that it's been known that this is going to happen, at least for me, because being real big into the Loopring community and seeing what they have been doing really over the last 2 years to build to this point. It really always made sense for Taiko to take over the layer 2 position, and then Loopring being on top of that as a layer 3, because with Taiko's layer 2 full ZK EVM, as well as being Ethereum equivalent, that's where the smart contracts will be deployed, and the dApps and everything will be deployed on top of Taiko, and allowing for Loopring actually, because basically when you take a rollup and a ZK rollup, zero knowledge proof, and you put that together on top of another one, if they're using the same type of proof, it's not going to work very well at all. And Vitalik said this from the very beginning. And so when designing Taiko, they really made sure that they designed it with a different style, so that they had the ability to build on top of it with what they've already built in Loopring. And you know, it's going to bring the transaction costs are going to come down even more, which is incredible, considering that I literally sent something just a couple days ago, and it cost me, I think, 0.11 something LRC, and that is ridiculous. And that was at a high gas fee time. I think gas was sitting around like 50 to 55, and anything on layer 1 was costing like $20 to even to really do. Like a swap was $20 to purchase something on OpenSea or anything like that was $20 a pop right there. And then even during those high traffic times, being able to send something for 0.1 LRC is a gift. And then knowing that once it's deployed on top of Taiko, that's going to go down even more. It just blows my mind, and that is huge for bringing the masses to a decentralized finance, place of moving forward. Because if you are someone that doesn't have a lot and you want to get into something, there's zero reason to go to layer 1 at that point when you see the fee structure and how much it makes sense to do that. And then they also implemented block trade, which allows for getting centralized exchange liquidity for a decentralized exchange, which no one's done yet. And that is incredible. That's an incredible feat for a decentralized exchange to bring something like that to the table, and no one else is.
What do you think? What do you think Loopring's like main target audience is? Are they going for the DeFi space or gaming, or they're trying to win all? Have you gone into it to understand? Have a deep understanding of that?
I mean, really, it's Loopring is decentralized finance to start. It always has been. Their push towards gaming is a community push. It really, everyone I know personally in the community has come over to Loopring from GameStop or promotions through that. There's obviously a very core group of people that were there before the GameStop announcement, and that's the core group of people that have been building for quite a long time, since 2018. And that that team has always been there, that following and everything that they've done over with Daniel Wang and Byron and everything. They've done a good job of maintaining that core group, definitely. So, to get back to your point, I see the main focus of Loopring being definitely DeFi.
Okay, interesting. They just done, according to Layer 2 Radar, they've accumulated 6 billion total volume in its lifetime, Loopring. So that's a pretty big number.
I saw that. Accounts. I saw that as well, and it's that's a staggering number. That is no small feat, and it's a thriving community as well of people that have really no technical background in the community, that have really learned a lot and are starting to be that voice that DeFi needs, and bringing on people that really don't know the tech about it. They just know that they're seeing banks around them crumble in a matter of a week time or 2 weeks time, and that's scary for a lot of people. So being able to kind of be your own bank is their slogan. So allowing that to happen with such low fees and low friction onboarding, the technology in the wallet itself as well. They're one of the first ones with social recovery, and that's a very big thing. When, hey, you lose access to your wallet, what do you do? And that's something that's cool, because the people that I have as guardians to my wallet, if I say, hey, I lost access to my phone, I can actually tell them to lock my wallet. Nice. That's something that's amazing. And then once I get access to it, I can have them give me the code, and then boom, I can unlock it.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. I think the move with Taiko being an equivalent, so there's not a lot of equivalent layer 2 ZK. There's lots of compatible, which means it's not 100% equivalent with Ethereum layer 1. So assuming that that means that anyone that wants to build DeFi products on this Loopring can very easily port from their layer 1 system to work off out of the box straight away on Taiko's layer 3 with Loopring.
Correct.
So that'd be, again, like we've spoken in the last episodes about how immutables, ZK EVM, and the importance of it being that people built their contracts on layer 1 can just out of the box work on immutable in the future. So that's another, like, it's correlated with that. Interesting. The link between Loopring and immutable is GameStop, really, and one's DeFi, one's on more focus on the games. It'd be interesting to see if when they both get that ZK EVM, can you hear about the people that are diehard Loopring and diehard immutable fans in the GameStop community complain. The number one complaint I see is that they can't get their tokens from Loopring to immutable very easily at the moment. Exactly. Even though there is layer swap that does it, but it only does a few tokens. So
correct.
I hope this means that in the future that they can set up a very easy swap, just get from stuff instantly, very low fees between the two chains.
And that's going to be huge. I think the Taiko launch, the actual launch, will give the ability to have a bridge between AIIMX and Loopring L3 that will be much more accessible than having to go through something like layer swap.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So next point I wanted to talk to you about, unless you've got something else to say on that update, is the WAGMI Games Studio going hardcore on marketing and letting the world know about themselves.
Yeah.
We haven't really.
That's something that they've been kind of teasing about for a while. One of the big things was the partnership between WAGMI and GameStop early on, and the fact that it was going to be a mobile game that that's allowed on the Apple App Store, which notoriously has been rooting out any blockchain-based games, or it's not necessarily been rooting them out, but has been making it pretty hard for them to pass their inspection.
Yeah. I just like they're just doing all the right. I mean, sometimes you see these games that overhype, and I started sensing a bit that with WAGMI, to be honest with you, but just they make the right hires. They've got the right people in the right roles. They've hired like ex-EA executives. They've got a really great vision. They're about to announce, I believe, like a Netflix video or something, a Netflix cartoon or anime, whatever. It's something like that for sure. They've been hinted at that. Now they're partnering with GameStop as well. The first time they mentioned GameStop was just a couple of weeks ago, which is just so smart. And like you got to be skeptical in this space about projects, because there's so many out there that are just full of fluff and not really anything to.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's one of the things that these marketing teams for these projects, that's their job. They're just doing the job. But at the end of the day, does the hype meet the expectations? And with WAGMI, it's something that we'll have to see. They're really promoting their coin a lot right now, so that kind of coincides with a lot of branding and partnerships that they've been doing. You mentioned that like a couple weeks ago was the first time that they had mentioned GameStop, but it isn't. They actually mentioned GameStop one of their very first tweets that they.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, that they did, and that's really why I've been watching them for so long. Is because they did sneak something into that early on, but it wasn't very noticeable at first to the layman, and I think that's why I've had my eye on them so much.
Yeah, okay.
I'm looking forward to it to see what, like you said, is there going to be a Netflix style show, because they do have the whole backstory of everything. They have the comic books that they released as the NFT collectible.
Yep.
So that would make sense, and that would be really cool to have a full-on Netflix show along with the game. And I know that there's a couple other projects that are looking to do that, but they actually, I know that of a couple other projects that are looking to do that, but they are not also games. They're like a profile picture project type thing, and then they're going that direction.
No, but I didn't get to finish because I had to be quiet because someone's cooking bacon in my house and the fire alarm's going off. So if you can hear that, sorry about that. It's like, seriously. So yeah, like what I did want to say is that I didn't want to say that it's all hype. I wanted to finish saying that I've done the research, I've looked into it. There's a lot of supporters of it because of the substance they've got, because they've got the right people in the right roles that have got outstanding experience in delivering high quality content, high quality outcomes, marketing partners. They didn't do a huge, VC with a cliff kind of sale at the start on their token. I think they've done a little bit now to raise a bit of funds, but they haven't got the VC going to dump on all the users. Their tokens, there's huge numbers of tokens, like 2 trillion or something like that. So it's never going to be like a $50 token, but it's. I think that's what a game token should be. It should be that low for flexibility for it to go up a lot, but still be very, very cheap for people to access and buy stuff. So
and that's
the token
that's a big point. I want to cut in right there because early on, a lot of games that didn't have their own token yet, they took IMX tokens that they were granted and started giving them away. Okay, and that's a big problem because looking back at it, that's funding that they started to trickle out into users' hands. That at the end of the day, people started expecting again and again. And once it wasn't there, the daily active users that everyone's trying to get started dying with that giveaway because it's not sustainable. So stop giving people tokens that you're granted unless they really deserve something, like they've done something above and beyond. But, it's scary to see. And then this direction, if you will, allows them to, like you said, that flexibility.
But it'd be interesting to see how they go. They've got really cool marketing ideas with Scott dressing up as that, human emperor, walking around the streets and they just got a lot of ideas. The game's pretty cool. I played it a couple of times. They're not. I think they just got the right attitude. They want to get rich, like any person in this world building projects like this, but they're not doing it at the expense of the player, I don't believe. And so I'll be interested to follow it and see how we go in imminent release, we believe. So probably at the end of this summer, I reckon they're going to release the game to the app stores, ready to play for everyone, free to play.
Yeah, and I think that seems about right to me as well. So the next section we'll move on to is some of the movements, some of the rattling and shaking in the IMX environment. One of the newest added items was Eyeball Pool. Big signing for IMX and big partnership, I feel there. Casual gaming meets competitive gaming. That's kind of, I mean, you go to the pool hall and there's always, your group of friends you play with for fun. And then, when you want to have a tournament, you have that ability as well. And I love this. I think it's great.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the pool, but apparently they have 1 billion downloads on their Web 2 version of the game.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I mean, it's something you can do when you're kind of bored on your phone, and it's doesn't take much time. And the Web 2 coming to Web 3, I see this as a big win for IMX.
Yeah, it's again another mobile game. They've signed a lot of mobile games recently, if you haven't noticed. I think their strategy is definitely to focus on Well, not focus on it solely, but like just to make sure that they're covering that market. It's obviously makes sense. There's 3.5 billion gamers, and majority of those are on mobile in the world.
For sure.
Does that translate into profits and all that stuff? I'm not so certain. I think the majority, the people that spend that money on mobile gaming aren't the kind of people that are going to come to Web3 and grind out cash for it. Like they're Candy Crushers and that. Like, does that translate into Web3? I might be wrong. I'm not saying I know for sure, but I still think that the best value would be like PC or consoles if we can get there eventually.
Yeah.
On the Web3, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things as well is that casual style game. How do you make it competitive? How do you make it to where it's not a who has the biggest checkbook to win these tournaments type things? And that's something I has still yet to be seen, really. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, but it's not all good news for Immutable with movements, as we know. They've lost a few games this week as well, in the last month, say. We've mentioned Star Heroes to Arb last week. That's, again, a nature of the smaller players, the smaller games, not getting allured away by a chain that has a lot simpler process to onboard. In what I mean that is that they can copy paste their onboarding of a game with Ethereum, and it limits what you can do. It limits expanding on top of that, but you can get going a lot quicker, I believe, on ARB than you could Immutable. You need to do a lot of, at the moment, research and understanding for the StarkX play. But so with Star Heroes, let's go on to ARB. Arrland Pirates of Arrland announced that they're in partnership with Altura. Altura seems to go after Immutable games because they're similar. They do SDK similar to, and they lure it on the multi-chain ability. People can put their NFTs anywhere they want.
And another thing I think they're doing also is they're scrapping the fees. So transaction fees, for sending NFTs and things like that. I believe that they were doing gasless as well. That's something that I heard one of their representatives talking about at 3XP. So I think they may have kind of scooped a few projects with that promise as well, which
that's only limited, isn't it? That wasn't like an endless supply of gas free. It's like we'll suck you in by giving you a limited time of gas free once you get certain volume.
I believe that is the truth, that it is a limited time deal. But again, I could be wrong. Then again, they did not have the largest presence at 3XP. They did have like a booth, if you want to call it that. It was more of a sitting area, which I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do other than just sit there, and that's where I kind of overheard one of their reps talking about that, and I thought it was interesting. So, then I mean, Cyber Galz as well. It sounded like they may be moving, but it looks like they are going to be committed to staying on AIIMX. But they are. They're not.
So they confirmed.
Go ahead.
They confirmed that they're staying on IMX with their current, what the NFTs they got now. So they're going to be integrated to their game with IMX. But they said their future was a very diplomatic, where is not defined where we're going to be in the future. Which they have. Their social media person has kind of indicated that's Oasis or Consensus. So, or I think it's Era Network. Is that right?
Yeah.
The Era.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that they've finalized that but who knows? There's lots of up in the air, vague statements. They don't like to commit to what they decided until the very end, I guess.
I think part of that has to do with the testnet, right? Of having of Immutable's testnet of their ZK EVM, how we've been told like, yeah, they're testing it right now. How long will they have to wait, as a project to do more development that they feel they need to do now, right? And if another chain is going to allow them to do that stuff now, they may have to make that decision depending on what their runway looks like, And I know for a fact that when I checked out Cyber Galz recently, I was playing around with one of mine, and I did notice that it had an option to transfer your Cyber Gal to layer 1, which is something I did not see as an option before.
Yeah, that's because they're keeping their options open.
Exactly.
There's one more that I wanted to talk about with the movements. Is it's probably the worst loss that Immutables had is Oxya Origin to BNB. So, and I listened into the AMA, the BNB AMA, where they had like 5 or 6 games. They're making all these statements like they're the best games in the world and they're going to be leading the gaming revolution. I looked at the games; they're all garbage except for Oxya Origin. But the Oxya Origin guy that spoke was quite critical of Immutable and kind of opposite to what we just heard from Matt from last resort. So there wasn't anything really outwardly like directly, but it was like little jabs. Like, and the one thing I picked up was the support they're getting from Immutable, which they already announced Altura. Oxya Origin, and again, what we're finding is these companies are choosing Altura as a stopgap between, because Immutable doesn't do the smart contracts yet. So I think that's what's going to happen. Oxya Origin has fallen. They need it now because the game's nearly ready, and ZK EVM's not out, so Immutable hasn't been able to service them like they need, and so they've chosen BNB. And funnily, they didn't say OPBNB. That space wasn't about OPBNB as well. It was just about their old, really poor layer 2. That's the copy of Ethereum.
Right, and that there's still kind of a bitter taste in my mouth about Oxya Origin. They did a really big space with AIIMX when they first announced that they were going to be on AIIMX, and they did a bunch of hype, and I went into their Discord. I started asking the questions, and one of the community managers was didn't necessarily like the way I was asking some of the questions or something. Got real short with me and started saying, well, if you want to know more, go here, and it was like, it was just their info page, and I had already read that information, and that's why I was there to ask those questions. And it seemed like he couldn't be bothered to really answer the questions, which again, it was early, but still for something that seems so close to launching and everything, it felt like there should be more answers than I was being given. And I think that might have had to do with not knowing for sure if they were going to stay with AIIMX or not, because a lot of the questions were pointed towards that. So
yeah, a lot of these games are getting grants, but the grant program with AIIMX doesn't give you tokens up front. The way it works for the majority of the games, unless you're published, which is only 5 games for Immutable, then your grant is only on volume of NFTs. And if you notice that the volume of NFTs are on Immutable at the moment is post-game release, not pre-game release. It's that fragment of liquidity. So the pre-game release NFTs are coming. The liquidity is coming from Ethereum layer 1, not from every chain has this problem, not just Immutable. Once the game releases on Immutable, there's heaps of liquidity for their NFTs when they're usable in games. So they've launched all their NFTs on Ethereum layer 1 to date. I think they might have one. Actually, I don't think they even have one NFT on an Immutable. So maybe that they were expecting more support from financially, and then BNB's been getting the checkbook out lately. So I think it's that, but also they've mentioned multi-chain in the past as well. Like they weren't one of these people that have this vision of keep it simple for the user. They can log in with a Auth3 kind of level, one-click login, and you got one ecosystem that just, the Apple style ecosystem that everything links together. There's only a couple of places that are trying to do that: Oasis, Immutable, Miria, and maybe Arb, but I don't think Arb's even got that. So they're very fragmented as well.
And I really am rooting for Oxya because I know that, they are probably one of the games that has the visual aesthetic that a lot of gamers are going to like. Also, I know that they are doing a small partnership with Cyber from GameStopIMX Marketplace. So that's something that's really cool that, they're branching out and bringing other projects in as well to do promos with. But we'll have to see exactly how that pans out. So
yeah, they're partnered with Ubisoft as well. So Ubisoft's actually working on their code right now.
Correct.
So it's a shame that they're leaving. And I actually never logged into the gate map. There's just too much to do in Web3 gaming, and I don't have all the time in the world. So
I got kind of confused on their gate map thing. I was checking around on some of it, and I just didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do. But then again, I didn't really follow up on it after the fact, so I think some of that's on me.
Well, I'm very interested in this because personally, I've never played a game on BNB. I've been around since 2020, early 2020. And BNB was the scam chain to me. Every single scam game was on BNB. So it was like, if you're going to build on that chain, I'm just not going to risk it. So I haven't really, there's a couple of games now that I've seen, like Fusionist that looked all right. And now this one. But like, even when I was looking at games, I'm like, there was one that was like Age of Empires that the graphics looked almost identical to the latest version of Age of Empires, the overhauled one. And they're copying that. Now it's gone as well. And they did all their token sales and NFT sales, and now all of a sudden it's gone. So, my experience with BNB has been that. So I just stay clear of that chain. And, maybe I'll get it out for, get a wallet for Oxya Origin to play it. But I don't know, man. Oxya Origin will want to be a good game. I'm very interested to see if they end up on BNB or OPBNB and how that decision then pans out for them in 12 months. I think it's going to be a major mistake on their behalf.
Yeah, we'll have to see. And I think another one we're gonna have to keep an eye on is Delysium, because they just tweeted the other day about Lucy again. If I hear about Lucy again, I might pull out the last bit of hair that I do have, because all of the time that they've been putting into the game, and I play tested. I was like ranked in like the top 10 play testers. I had a great time playing the game, and all I keep hearing about is Lucy and AI and all of this stuff. And I feel like Ricky Ricardo right now. I feel like Lucy, you have some splaining to do, because quite a bit of time invested in this, as well as money, because I invested in the Genesis Mint and everything, and now they're going to be pointing all their time to lending out Lucy to everyone else, and I don't know how that helps me game or make my money back. So
yeah. So what information I've got is that 8 years ago they started an AI, and then 4 years ago, or maybe 5 now, they started building Delysium. Then they sell these like weld for Delysium, like there's what they call DMAs or DMOs.
DMOs, yeah.
DMOs for people to be able to build their own world in this AI driven, world shooter game, like MMO style game, where you can bet you build your own like instance that people can play in, and your job is to attract people to your instance, and there's thousands of them now.
Yeah.
So it all sounded really exciting, but then there's also the chat. I saw, I think it was Board, or someone, Board or Loopify, I'll get them mixed up, listed a few games that started off as games and turned into tech. And that was the way I got the thought about this, because I've actually had a conversation with Jenny, a Telegram dialogue with Jenny from their PR from Delysium, and I asked them for an interview for this podcast because I was super excited about it, and I was very surprised to hear the actual words of, "We have deprioritized the game for the AI," and I'm like, is this another case of Slack? The MMO that turned into Slack.
Yeah.
Did they find something better for them to make money? Or is it just an actual deprioritization, which they will circle back? And if they don't circle back, what's going to happen with those DMOs and those people that invested in that? It's a very interesting time for Delysium.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they circle back and try to, make that into something, or how they spin it off. I think the last thing we have for this episode is marketplace changes incoming for AIIMX.
Yeah. Do you want me to go into that?
Yeah, let's what do you got?
So the marketplace is very different. Everyone knows by now, or should start to know now, that it's a API driven marketplace, not a contracts driven marketplace. So where when you sell your NFT, it's not locking up a contract like OpenSeas or any other marketplace, Blur or any of those main ones, Magic Eden. There are 14 marketplaces that are official, that are built on the API, which means that if you list an NFT on say the GameStop marketplace, it gets put into the API world and it's available to everyone to be able to. Oh my god, that alarm's going off again. If you can hear it, sorry.
You're good.
So if you list it in one place, it can be sold and bought. Sorry, it can be bought on any other people's other marketplaces that decide to list that collection. So from the next, sorry, I'm getting really I've got my dog knocking on the door. I was completely lost.
So going from the already global order book right now, and then what upcoming changes are going to be added?
So so in this style, the other major difference with this is there's 4 fees that are broken down when you pay for it, and at the current marketplace version 1, the buyer pays all those fees. So if the seller lists an NFT for one Ethereum, they get 1 Ethereum. The buyer comes onto their marketplace, and the calculation of what it costs is done by that marketplace, the place where they're buying it from. So it could be different depending on where you're buying it from. I list 1 NFT on GameStop, and someone comes on the Token Trove and can buy it. They can come onto Rarible and buy it. The exact same NFT. So the protocol fee is 2%. The marketplace fee is broken into 2: a maker and a taker. So the person that makes the sale or the bid, or sorry, not the bid, the offer. So either adds liquidity to the marketplace by either making a bid or by listing an NFT, or and the taker fee, which is the marketplace that actually sells the item. So therefore, the Ethereum or whatever the token is gets split between wherever the NFT is bought and sold. If it's different, then it gets to 2 different locations. And then there's also obviously the creator fee, the royalties. So there's 4: protocol, royalties, taker, and maker. So at the moment, the buyer buys it all. But to prepare for ZK EVM and to make it cross-platform capable, ZK EVM and StarkX will be compatible on the same marketplaces and listable on the same marketplaces. To enable that, the seller was actually going to pay the fee for the when they list,
right?
Which is a big change, and also it means that there's 2% fee on the ZK AVM sales as well.
Right.
So you pay gas as well as a 2%.
Exactly. And that's where the next change comes in, where AIIMX is going to be the gas token for Immutable's ZK EVM.
So there's big
changes.
The StarkX side will still, I believe, be gas free, but will it? There's a lot of questions that I've read lots of documents on this. I've spent like 2 hours honestly reading about it, and I'm still not sure. The best thing about Immutable StarkX implementation, I can list an NFT for free right now. Bank list it. I don't pay a cent. So does this change mean that the seller now has to pay that seller fee up front and have the Ethereum in their, or AIIMX token or whatever token it is, in their account to be able to list now? Which is a massive, massive change to the value proposition of Immutable. And it's actually, I think it takes away from it.
I would imagine if it is a ZK NFT that you are going to be selling, I would imagine you would need that gas token in there before. But I don't know if you remember, like the first episode, we were talking about how I did a little preview of the passport feature where they had they had the gas fees in there. It did have the ability to pay with other tokens, and it did the swapping for you and things like that. So
relayer,
correct. It did have the relayer in there. So that being said, it sounds like that's something that they've already thought about and would be very smart to have done. So makes sense.
This is my mission for. I'm really sorry I didn't explain this very clearly to everyone. So I'm going to do more research and in another episode of this pod explain it in more details and have these questions answered for us. The question number two questions I really want to know is: do StarkX implementation people listening, because it's going to be the same API that they both use. It's going to be called version 3 of the API. And it's been built to stop code bloat, which means they'll be and also redesigned so they can build new features on much easier, much faster. So, will the StarkX NFTs cost gas to list? I hope not. I hope it's flexible that it won't cost gas to list. And will the seller have to? On gas is definite every time you list from a ZK EVM listing. Will have to pay gas, but will the seller have to pay the Ethereum have it come out of their account upon listing an NFT, or at least blocking it so it can't be, it can be held in case it's sold. So interesting, those two major questions, but also a little bit more explanation. A little bit, I'll get it. I promise you, I'll get it clearer. But it's exciting, and this is one of the things that really matters to Immutable. It's been their number one advantage, and how this turns out is going to be so vital for them to maintain that advantage or lose that advantage.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. So, on that note, we'll send you off to figure out how you're going to achieve those two tasks. And I think, honestly, this has been a great episode. I again want to thank Last Resort, Matt, for coming on and taking the time. We had a lot to cover in this episode. I'm really looking forward to the future and what it brings to AIIMX and Loopring and GameStop NFT. Any closing notes from you?
Yeah, I've just got my I had my really good result on the Who AIIMX episode 18. Thanks for everyone that watches that. It reads that thread. It had one of my best performances without having Robbie retweet it, which is thank you for people that do retweet that. I had to cut a lot of content out because it was 2 weeks of stuff. But this week's I've got a lot of news ready going into it. It'll be out tomorrow night. It's heaps of content again, so I'm gonna have to cut stuff out again. Immutable's growing up. It's getting so big that I may have to do bi-weekly newsletters. But yeah, thanks for everyone that supports that.
Oh, I love that Who AIIMX segment. That's actually the thing that made me reach out to you and be like, hey, we should do a podcast, and and really, honestly, everyone in the community, I think, as you can see from the response of how many retweets you're getting and things like that, people really do enjoy that segment, and it brings a lot of information that is needed. So thank you again for doing that.
No worries. Please, everyone, feel free to retweet. Just one retweet of mine a week. It'll be that one. I'd love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it makes a difference because getting the word out there, and then also as an advocate for AIIMX, it makes a difference, so showing that.
There's one guy actually in this week's one that I'm going to highlight. I try to get one community member that's highlighting an Immutable product into the tweet. And there's a guy that's got 498 followers, did an Illuvium tweet thread and got 300,000 views. So I'm going to highlight this one. It's like, talk about success. I was,
Yeah.
One tweet thread, 300,000. I hope that's not botted, but if it shouldn't be. Just there's lots of interest in Delysium, so we'll see. You'll get to see that tweet. It's actually a really cool thread, to be honest with you. So I think it's organic.
Looking forward to it. So again,
Thank
you for joining us for this week's episode of Gamers Galaxy. And
number 5.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week.